See here in this servlet I am not doing much. I am setting an attribute called v. If you see this servlet I am not doing much. I am setting an attribute. I am setting an attribute with name v and the value is rain. I am forwarding the request to JSP, display.jsp. In display.jsp I am trying to display request.get attribute v. That's all, right? So this is again a Java code, right? If you want to display an attribute which is present in any one of the scope, you can also use expression language. Now I'll tell you how to display an attribute which is present in request by using expression language. See, in expression language, all the expressions will be of this form. All the expressions in expression language will be like this: $A. If you use $A, what it will do is it will search for an attribute called A in any one of the scopes, starting from the list scope. Starting from the list scope. Tell me, which is the least scope in JS in servlets? Means if I set an attribute in request, that attribute will be available as long as this request is available. If I set an attribute in session, that attribute is available as long as the session object is available. If I set an attribute in context, it is available. The attribute is available as long as application is running. So, if I set an attribute in request, that will be having a least lifespan. As soon as the response is sent back, request object is destroyed, all the attributes in request also are destroyed. So the lifespan of an attribute which is set in request is said to be having least scope. Then session. If I set an attribute in session, right, that attribute will be available, the scope of that attribute will be as long as the session is available. Right, once I log out or once session times out, the session will be deleted and also attributes inside also will be deleted. So after request, the next highest scope is session. And application is the highest scope. As long as my web application is running, the attributes which I set in servlet context will be available, right? So the next scope is said to be application scope. So in servlets we understood three scopes: request, session, application. Request being the least scope, then next is session, then next is application scope, right? But in JSP we have four scopes. The extra scope is page scope. How do you set an attribute in request? Request.set attribute. Session, session.set attribute. How do you set an attribute in application scope? Servlet context object dot set attribute. How do you set an attribute in page scope? Page context dot set attribute. In JSP you have an implicit object called page context. So page context dot set attribute, if you say, it will be set in page scope. Okay. So four scopes are there in JSP, in servlet three scope, right? Now coming here, if I write $A, this is an expression in expression language. It will search for A starting from list scope. It will try to search for attribute called A in page scope first. The list scope is page. If it finds, it will print its value. If it is not available, it will search for A in request scope, the next highest scope. If it finds A in request scope, it will print it. Otherwise, if in request also it is not there, it will look in session. Right? If it is in session, it will print it. Otherwise, if it is not in session, then it will look in application scope. If it finds it, it will print it. If it does not find there also, tell me what it will print. You expect that null will be printed, but expression language will never print nulls. It will be empty, just a blank space. Right? Now, if I want to display, tell me how I can do it. See, the attribute name is what? V. Okay, let me write Varun. Now it will print definitely. Okay, now the attribute name is Varun. Now tell me in JSP, if I want to print Varun, which is present in request scope, how should I write the expression language? Dollar Varun. Okay, now let us say I'll run it. Let me refresh. Yeah, I got Varun. Okay, I'll open it in Firefox. I'm getting the value of. Okay, now I've got the value. So $V, $Varun gave me value. Okay, here I told Varun. Okay. Okay, $Varun. No, it is in Varun in request scope. See, I have said attribute Varun. Then it is displaying $Varun means it is displaying rain. Okay, I'll refresh it. The output, the meaning of Varun is finally. Okay. Now what I will do is I will set an attribute in session. See how I do it. Request dot get session will get a session. Get session. I'll be getting a session object, HTTP session object. Session is equals to, then I will set an attribute in session. Session dot set attribute. Okay, tell me another name which is having a good meaning. What is that? Neeraj. What is the meaning? No. What is the meaning? Exact meaning? Neeraj means lotus. Okay. So now I have set an attribute called Neeraj in session. Now if I want to print the value meaning of Neeraj here, meaning of Neeraj is, tell me how do I print it? $? Now these are the name of the attribute. So simply Neeraj. Now I will refresh it. Meaning of Neeraj is lotus. Now what I will do is I will set an attribute Varun only in both session and request. Varun name is, Varun meaning is lotus. Okay, so let's assume that the attribute name is same in request and session, right? Now I want to display, if I write $Varun, what will happen? Which will be displayed? Tell me. Lotus or rain? Huh? Why? Why rain and why lotus? Now I am refreshing. See, meaning of Neeraj, it is not showing. Okay. Here in display.jsp, what I should write, once I write Varun, Varun is having different meaning. The meaning of Varun in request is rain. The meaning of Varun in session is lotus. It is displaying the value in request. Why? Because I said whenever I write dollar something, it will search for Varun first in list scope. What is the list scope? Page. It didn't find that. It searched in request. It found it. So it printed it. Right? So how to print Varun in session? Okay. For understanding it, you need to understand that expression language also can be of this form, A.B. Right? If I write an expression language in this form A.B, A can be any attribute in one of the scope, or A can be any one of the implicit objects of expression language. Expression language is having 11 implicit objects. JSP was having 8 implicit objects, right? Expression language is having 11 implicit objects. A can be any one of the implicit objects. Now I just list out all the implicit objects of expression language. Very easy to remember also. Request scope. Request scope is one of the implicit object in expression language, not in JSP, remember. Session scope, page scope application scope. Okay, these are the four. Next, param, this is another thing. Param values, header values, cookie, init param, page context. How many totally? 11, right? So these are the implicit objects of expression language. It's very easy to remember. See, this one value for each scope, right? Base scope, request scope, session scope, application scope, right? Now when I said expression language can be of this form A dot B, A can be any one of these implicit objects, right? So now see how I'll write in my JSP. If I want to display Varun in request scope, what I can do is request scope dot. Okay, now if I want to explicitly say I want to display the meaning of Varun in session, is session scope dot Varun. So I am explicitly saying from which scope I want by using implicit objects like request scope or session scope, right? Now I will refresh it. Let us see. Yeah, the meaning of Varun is rain. The meaning of Varun in session is. So if you want to explicitly tell in which scope, then you can use any one of the implicit object like request scope or session scope or page scope or application scope, right? See, you can easily understand the use of application scope and session scope also, page scope also, right? So we understood how to use these four implicit objects. When you want to explicitly say from which scope, you have to explicitly use one of these. But if you directly say Varun, it will always search from the. If you just say Varun, it will search from the lead scope. It will start searching from page scope. Wherever it finds, it will use it. But if you want to explicitly say from which scope, then you have to explicitly use one of the implicit objects of expression language. Okay? When let's assume that I'll just make this scenario complex. I'll create a class called user, a bean called user, and I'll have private string name, that's all, and I'll create a class called address, which will be having city and country. Then just getters and setters. Now address is a bean, as I was telling earlier, and user will be having private address. Now I'll generate getters and setters. See here now, user is a bean and address is also a bean. Address is nested bean, I can say. See, address is a class which is having city, country. Address is a bean, and user also is a bean which is having address as nested bean, right? So can I say city is a nested property of a bean called user? Now I want to tell you about this scenario. See, in eldemo.java, what I'll do is I'll just create an object of user. User u is equals to new user u dot set name. Tell me one name. Robert. Who is Robert? Okay, Robert. I'll create an object of address. Huh? Address dot set city. Tell me. Huh? Hyderabad, okay. And address dot set country. Yeah, Pakistan also is having Hyderabad. Oh, sorry, Pakistan, our favorite country. Then I will set address inside user u dot set address. Then I will set address user object inside request scope, or I will set it in context, get servlet context dot set attribute. I am setting it in application scope. U object is U, or I will say US. Okay. So user object is with a name called US. Right now in JSP, what I can do is I can write expression language in the form of a dot b. I can write something like $US dot name. Okay. As I told, whenever an expression language is of this form a dot b, a can be an attribute in any one of the scope, or a can be any one of the implicit objects, right? A can be an attribute in any one of the scope. Okay, now I'll say $. Now I'll say $US. It is an attribute in any one of the scope, but it is a bin, right? US is an user object, right? Now see here what will happen if I just refresh it. We'll just refresh it. See your name, it is printing com.acc.user. What is it? Is it not two-string representation of user object? Yes. So I don't want to print, I want to print the name of the user. When an expression language is of this form a.b, a can be an attribute in any one of the scope. Okay. US was an attribute in any one of the scope. And if a is a bean, B can be a property of the bean, right? So US is a bean in one of the scope, bean of type user, right? If I say US dot name, name is a property of the bean user, right? So it will display name. Let me just refresh it and see. Okay, print name Robert. So an expression language can be of this from a dot b. When it is of this form a dot b, a can be an attribute in any one of the scope, and a can be either a bean or a map. If a is a bean, then B should be property of the bean. Property of the bean. And if A is a map, then tell me B should be key to that map. Map will have key value pairs, right? So you can use expression language of this from $B. If A is a bean, then B should be property. and if A is a map, B should be key, right? Now if you see this case, US is a property, US is a bean of type user. If US is a bean, then name should be the right? Now once you understand this, an expression language can be like this: dollar A dot B dot C dot D dot E, like that, to any levels. Now tell me, how can I display address? See, user object is having, user bean is having address as its property. Address is having city as property, right? So if I want to display city of user, how I can display it here in JSP? I'll write BR first. City dollar US dot, tell me, user is having a, yes, user is having address dot city. I said an expression language can be of the form A dot B dot C. So US is a bean. If US is a bean, then this is a property of the bean. This is a nested property of the bean. So by using expression language, it is very easy to display nested properties of the bean, right? So like that, dots can be nested to any levels. Okay. Now, as I said here, if A is a bean, then B should be property. Okay, this example we saw. User object was a bean, US was a bean, then name was a property. Now, if A is a map, then B should be key to the map. So I will create a map inside my servlet. See here, I will create a map. Map of string comma, okay, string comma string. The key is a string and also value is also a string I am writing. M is equals to new hash map of string comma string. Now can I put key value as M dot put? Tell me some word and its meaning. Anybody having good name in their meeting? Huh? Mukta. Okay, what is that? Huh? Huh? Okay, Mukta. What is the meaning? Pearl. Oh. Okay, dot PL. Okay, Pearl. Okay, again, any other good names? Pappu. Nisha. Okay, Nisha. Night. KNIG. Okay. Any other good name? Mohit. Okay, tell me the meaning. Attraction. Very good. Okay, final name. Piyush. Drunkard. I will put this map inside one of the scopes. I'll put it inside request now. Request dot set attributes meanings and the value is M, the map. So meanings is the name of the attribute. So now tell me how to display the meaning of Mohit. Meaning of Mohit. Tell me, dollar. See, when it is of this form A dot B, A can be a map. If A is a map, B should be the key to the map. Okay, now tell me, what is the name? Meanings is attribute name, right? In one of the scope, meanings dot. Tell me, Mohit. Meanings dot Mohit will give the meaning. Now I'll just refresh. The meaning of Mohit is attraction. No, here I didn't give. Here I didn't give BR. Okay. Okay. So we understood expression language can be of form A dot B. If it is in A dot B, A can be either a bean or a map. A can be either a bean or a map. If A is a bean, then B should be. If A is a bean, B should be property, and if A is a map, B should be map. Right? Like that you can write expression languages. Now, I am going to tell that expression languages can be of this form also. Dollar A of B. See, expression language can be of this form also. Dollar A of B. This is called as array notation. This is called as dot notation. So in expression language there are two notations: dot notation, array notation. Okay, or this is array notation, this is dot notation. Okay. Now if A can be here a bean in any one of the scope, or A can be a map in any one of the scope, or A can be an array in any one of the scope, or list in any one of the scope, right? So I'll just make a list. A can be either a bean in any one of the scope, or map in any one of the scope, or array in any one of the scope, or a list in any one of the scope. Okay? Now see here, if A is a bean, then B should be property of the bean. If A is a map, then B should be key. If A is an array, B should be index to the array. And again, if A is a list, B should be index to the list. List also will be having indexes, right? So B should be. So you can use any one of the notation, right? If you are using A dot B, A can be either a bean or a map only. If you are using array notation, A can be either a bean or a map or an array or a list. Okay. Now, can I do like this? Instead of displaying US dot name, I will try to write US of name. Okay, I can use the dot notation or bracket notation, right? But whatever you are writing in bracket should be in double quotes. Okay? Now, bracket notation or array notation? Yeah. No. It can be either a bean or a map or an array or a list. Anything. Now, US is a user object. It's a bean. It is a property, right? So either you can use US dot name or US bracket name. Both are okay. And here, I'll try to tell you, you can use a combination of both. See here, I'll say US dot address dot city. Am I not using a combination of both notations? Yes, you can use a combination of both notations. Now see, I will just run it. Some exception is being thrown. Wait, let me just see. Okay, just let me just do it. Yeah. What it is saying is this is wrong. Okay, I'll try to do like this. US dot address, and here I'll try to use now I'm using a combination of both. Now I'll just refresh it. Let us see. I'm getting city with Hyderabad, right? Yeah, correct. I got it. So I can use a combination of both the notations, dot notation and bracket notation, right? Now, when I'm using bracket notation, A can be an array or a list. So now I'll just quick example of how to use an array or a list. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll create an array, or now I'll create a list, array list of string. I'll say movies is equals to new array list. I will add movies dot add. Tell me one favorite movie. Tell me. Okay, is that? Pyar Ka Peenama. Okay. Any other movie? Huh? BH War. Hangover. Okay, let us sufficient. Otherwise, okay. Now I want to print this movie called Hangover. Okay, if I want to print movies, and I'll say dollar. Tell me. Okay, did I set it in one of the scope? No, I didn't set it. Okay, I'll set it in scope. Request dot set attribute I'll say MOV movies. Value is movies. The attribute name is MOV. MOV dot. See, MOV is an array, right? If A is an array, how to access it? Can I use dot notation if it is an array? No, I have to use bracket notation and I have to pass the index. Movie of 0. Similarly, comma. Movie of 1. Comma. Movie of 2. Okay, now I just refresh it. Let us see what will happen. Movies are, yeah, it has printed all the movies. So what we understood is in expression language there are two notations, dot notation and bracket notation, or angle or array notation. This is called bracket notation or array notation. Okay. So when we are using this notation, it can be either bean or a map or an array or a list. Right? Same example, if movies was an array, I can use indexes also. Right? Now once you understood this, let us try to understand the rest of the implicit objects present in expression language. There is an implicit object called param. Now tell me, if you want to display request parameters, if you are expecting a request parameter, how do you display it? In scriptlet by using expression language Okay, see here, let me tell you. I want to give a request parameter. See, for yield demo question mark. Request parameter, suppose I'll say x is equals to something a b c d. So now x is the request parameter. If I give a request like this, x is a request parameter, right? Whatever is coming after question mark is called what? Tell me. Query string. X is a request parameter, right? Now I want to display the value of x inside my JSP. See now. Value of request parameter is, if I am using expressions, it will be like this. Request dot get parameter, I have to pass parameter name is x. So will this display the value of the request parameter x? Yes. Now let me check. I will refresh it. Yeah, request parameter, value of request parameter is ABCD here. Okay, I will pass something else. I am getting whatever I am passing as request parameter, right? But is this not a Java code? So if you want to print a request parameter value using expression language, instead of writing like this, you can use $param. See, param is one of the implicit object. Param dot x. Param dot x. Param is one of the implicit object, right? I said when you are using a dot b or a of b notation, a can be any one of the implicit objects. Param dot name will display the param dot name of the parameter is x. It will display the value of request parameter x. So param can be used to display the request parameters. Okay. Any doubts still now? Can one request parameter have multiple values? Yes. Example, tell me. Suppose in my JSP I am having a checkbox, hobbies. You can have a number of hobbies. Sleeping, eating, other than working and reading, listening the class, all are your hobbies, right? Or drinking also is your hobby? Okay, so if in a JSP, if I have checkbox, hobbies, a user can select more than one hobby. So a request parameter called hobby can have more than one values. So if one request parameter has more than one values, if you want to display that, then you can use another implicit object called param values, as the name says. Okay. See now, I'll just tell you how to send request parameters same name. Okay, let me tell you hobby. Request parameter called hobby is equals to sleeping in class ampersand, and the next hobby is drinking. Okay, drinking ampersand hobby is equals to laughing. So one request parameter called hobby is having multiple values: sleeping in class, drinking, and laughing. Now if I want to display that in JSP, see here, hobbies, or I'll just display hobbies are dollar, tell me, param values. One request parameter is having more than one value, so param values dot, what is the request parameter name? Hobbies, HOBB, hobby or hobbies? hobby is the name of the request parameter of. See, when one request parameter is having more values, it's just like an array. Hobby is an array. Array means I can use bracket notation. Hobby of 0 means it will display the 0th hobby, comma, I will display all the 3 hobbies like this. So hobbies of 1, hobbies of 2. So now let us see hobbies are, oh no, this is not the one. Which is other one? Hobbies, where it is? Is it closed? Okay, I'll write again hobbies quickly. Hobby is equals to sleeping ampersand, hobby is equals to drinking ampersand, hobby is equals to movie. See, hobbies are sleeping, drinking is not coming. Some spelling mistake. So HOBBIE. Okay, I think I didn't print here. I didn't write correctly. Of 0, hobby of 1, hobby of 2. Yeah, 3 should be printed. HOBBIE. And I think there is a space here. Okay, now it came, right? So if one request parameter is having more than one values, you can use param values. See the syntax here. This is the way, param values dot the parameter name, and if it is having more than one value, it is just like an array. Of 0 will give the 0th element, 1, 2, right? So you understood about param values. Now guess header. The next one which I want to show you is how to use implicit object of expression language header. Guess. To display header values. Every request will have some request headers, right? To display header values. I know that there is one of the request header called accept-language, which will display the language of the browser. Okay, I will try to display that by using header. Accepted language of the browser. Accepted language dollar header. Okay, I can use the dot notation or anything. Header of the name is accept hyphen language, right? It will display the request header called accept hyphen language. Let me just refresh it. Yeah, accept hyphen language is en, right? I can change the language of my browser also like this. Yeah, I think here I can choose a language. I can choose Hindi. Hindi as my language, I will add it. Okay. Now if I refresh, the value should be Hindi HI. Right? So if you want to display any request header, you can use header implicit object of expression language. Remember, this is expression language of expression. See, this is implicit object of expression language, not for JSP. Okay. Now the next thing, guess what is this header values for? Yeah, one header can have multiple values which If you want to display that, then you can use other values. Usage is similar to param values. Okay. Give it. Next, cookie. By using cookie, you can display cookies. Simply. If you know that there is a cookie, every cookie will be having a name, value, and lot of other properties, right? Name, value, and path, host, etc. Expiry time, etc. Right? So if you want to display anything about a cookie, then you can use a use cookie expression language implicit object. So I'll just show you how to use cookie. See, by default, if I'm using JSP, session enabled or not? By default, session is implicit object of JSP or not? Yes. So session is enabled for a JSP. So that means that there will be a cookie called JSessionID. So let me print JSessionID value. Value of, okay, I'll write BR here. Value of JSessionID. Tell me how to do it. Dollar to display cookie. Cookie is implicit object. Cookie dot the cookie name. Cookie name is JSessionID. Okay. Let us see what it will display. I'll refresh it. Oh, it is printing a cookie object, is it? It is printing two string of cookie object, is it? So cookie dot cookie name, if I give, it is giving me cookie object. Can I say that cookie also is a bean? Yeah, cookie is having private variable getName. In cookie class, there is a method called getName. If the method name is getName, what will be the property name? Name. If the inside cookie there is a method called getValue, which will give the value. If the getter method name is getValue, what will be the property name? Value. So what I'll do is, if I want to display the name of the cookie, I can say cookie.jsessionID dot, it can be nested, right? If I say name, it will print the name of the cookie, or if I print value, it will print the value of the cookie. Now I'll just refresh, let us see what will happen. Yeah, it has displayed the JSessionID value. Right? So cookie implicit object is used to display the value of a cookie. Okay? Any doubts? It is an implicit object of expression language. Cookie is an implicit object. See, I listed here. Cookie is an implicit object of expression language. Right? Cookie dot cookie name dot value. Cookie dot cookie name will give you the cookie object. Cookie is also bean. It is having some properties like name and value. Dot name will give the name of the cookie. Value dot value will give the value of the cookie. Last one. Init param. Guess. You should be able to guess. Huh? Initialization parameters. What are the initialization parameters? How do you configure initialization parameters for a servlet? Inside web.xml, inside servlet tag, I can configure init param tag, right? Okay. Most of you will get confused by saying init param. You feel that it is used to display init parameters of a servlet. You are wrong. The name is so confusing. Init param is used to display context parameters. Okay, not servlet init parameters, context parameters. So we already saw how to configure context parameters in web.xml. Suppose if there is a context parameter with name x, and if I want to display the value, then I can use $init param dot x. Okay, see here. In web.xml, I'm just modifying my web.xml. Here I'll just create a context param very quickly. Context param name x, param value xyz or something, whatever it is. Okay, now I want to display the value of x, so what I can do in JSP, value of context param x is dollar, tell me, init param dot x. This will display the context parameter. Okay, just if once I modify web.xml, I need to restart my application. I'm just restart my application. Refresh. Yeah, value of the context parameter x is this one on, right? This is the one which I configured in web.xml, right? So these are the various implicit objects present in expression language. Okay, and these are the usage of it. This JSP is having example of each and everything. Okay, expression language can also be used to evaluate arithmetic expressions. See here, I will write something like this: dollar 1 plus 2. I'll say 1 plus 2 is see, dollar 1 plus 2 expression language is used to evaluate any arithmetic expression. 1 plus 2, 1 into 2, whatever it is. I'll just refresh it. Yeah, 1 plus 2 is 3. Very good, very good, very big mathematical computation. Dollar init param dot x will print the context parameter value x, right? Now I'll say is equals to 1, 2, 3. But what is the value of context parameter x in web.xml? It is different, 1, 2, 2, 4, 3, 4, right? Now this expression language, this expression will be evaluated and it will print true or false. Expression language is used to evaluate. Now just I will refresh it, let us see what will happen. False, right? So expression language is used for comparison. It can evaluate expressions like this, or it can evaluate arithmetic expressions also